This place, you know, it's not for you.
Lots of people get lost in Saltburn.
Oh, that's just giving me goosebumps.
You and Jacob Elordi have like fucking cracking chemistry in the movie. Seems to get on really well outside of the film. Was that like an immediate spark?
People think we're together. It's crazy. Honest to God.
What was it like when you
I'm
first
not
met?
that lucky, you know what I mean? That'd be some Paul, wouldn't it? Jacob Elordi.
But yeah, you'd have people battering down your door to...
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, the internet's crazy, man. Fucking hell, like, are they together? Are they, No, we're not together. Jesus.
It's the chemistry though, man. Was that like an
Oh, man.
immediate thing when you started filming?
Yeah, you know, it's, I'm gonna say something very cliche, but real recognizes real, and it's like, you know, with him, it's, you know, he's just so, he's so genuine and supportive, and, you know, he's always checking in on me, and then that translate, like, you know, on the screen, so, yeah, it's easy.
It's intense shoot as well, so you want someone that you can like...
Yeah, you want someone who elevates you and who brings the best out in you as well. And just good banter, you know?
Loved the fact that we kind of meet Michael at the beginning, get introduced to him essentially as what we think maybe is kind of like the least likeable character of that opening sequence, and then kind of by the end he's maybe perhaps the most likeable. What was your kind of initial reaction to reading the script and kind of digging into Michael a little bit?
Oh, just this, you know, this world that Emerald Fennell's created. You know, you can't, you know, it's a little bit like watching the film. You want to look away, but you just can't stop staring. You need to know what the next page is saying, you know, and, you know, seeing Michael Gavey in the script, there's the script as a whole, there's this uncertainty, you know, and and there's moments where you don't know whether or not to laugh or to be freaked out, and you feel like you're walking this very fine line, and at any moment you're gonna slip and fall off, you know. But you don't know when it's gonna come, but you know it is coming, you know.
How do you think Michael would have responded had he kind of received the invite to Saltburn instead of Oliver?
I think he would have, maybe a few days he would have stayed there, and then he would have been out, you know. If he had gone, it would have been for Oliver, you know, and his friendship. But you know, Saltburn as itself, it's you know, it's quite an intimidating place, and
Absolutely.
I think he would have been intimidated.
Has anything kind of surprised you both about the reaction the film's got?
I guess I'm always surprised. Maybe it's silly to be so surprised at how shocking people have found it. It was obviously, I think we knew we were making something shocking, and there were shocking moments in it. But it's been, I think, brilliantly so, very polarizing in the things that people have been shocked by. I guess I think that there's so much kind of nudity and in films these days that I was surprised that people were so shocked by this. But I guess actually it's not about the nudity, it's about the circumstances around it and the power dynamics and the kind of uncomfortable situations that Emerald forces the audience in. It's actually not that much nudity in the film, it's really just the kind of character dynamics, and people are finding those unbelievably shocking,
Yeah, it's interesting when you make something about desire, actually, how exposed I think people can feel when they watch it, because, you know, that's not something a lot of people, I guess, reveal all the time. And so I think she's doing something so fascinating by tapping into something that, I guess, is a little, I guess, people keep to themselves. So I think there's the shock factor, I think, is linked to that as well. Of, oh my God, do other people? Yeah.
Alison, I wanted to ask you, Venetia's final bathtub scene is like one of my favourite moments in the movie, and I'd read that it was your audition scene as well. I wondered if you could just talk me through like what the kind of the day or days of filming that moment were like after kind of it being the beginning of your Saltburn journey, and obviously it's the end of the characters.
Oh, that's
journey.
so lovely. I didn't even think about it like that. Yeah, of course. I think, you know, that piece of writing is like one of the best things I've ever read, and I think with something like that, I almost feel like I just don't, you know, I just wanted to lean into the language of it and almost not get in the way of it, because the words do so much, and I think it's a really pivotal moment for when someone is finally saying this is what you are and this is what you're trying to do. You know, I think Emerald was kind of my reference for everything for this film, so I worked through that with her a lot, and obviously then having like Barry opposite you is kind of makes everything very great. And but yeah, we actually shot the scene, and then we went back to it actually a couple of days later. So I had a couple of goes at it, which was really great. And I think, you know, I actually feel like in the overall film, or just how I always felt about Venetia, is like she doesn't actually have a massive voice really within her family dynamic, and then I think you see a lot of her when she's on her own with Oliver. There's kind of different shades to her, and I think with that scene in particular, what I loved about it was, I think, is when you kind of really see her step into her voice, and you know, we kind of see her kind of intelligence and how her observational qualities throughout the film have really taught her like what is happening here. So, but yeah, I loved doing that scene so much, and I'm glad you liked it.
Speaking of elevating things together, I know that you and Emerald spoke about the now infamous grave scene and how you kind of worked together to like add that extra element to it. Did you know shooting that it was going to be this like quote unquote like shocking moment that people were going to?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're fecking a grave, right? It's definitely going to be talked about. It's you know what, it was required though. You know, I wanted to see where it went, and you know, it's the next level up in obsession. And I just wanted to see, you know, when action happened, what I'd do as Oliver. You know, so it was interesting to discover that. So.
And is that like that sort of like collaboration with Emerald? Was that something that you kind of like went back to over the course of shooting? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we always chat. We always like, you know, as if like we always try to justify the actions and, you know, the motives, and you know, we'll debate some stuff and we'll go, that works, that doesn't. I mean, that just shows like the level of trust we have for one another. So.
Yeah. Was there like another? Can you think of like another moment in the movie that kind of like where that sort of collaboration really added another element?
Where was it? I mean, it would be the dance scene, do you know? Because I was hesitant to dance, not even get nude. It was to dance. I don't dance, so kind of just move my head, you know.
And a killer track as well, so you've got to do it justice.
But the dancing was, I was like, maybe he just walks through the house, and, you know. She's like, no, he dances. I was like, oh god, here we go.
Did you see? I don't know if you've seen Sophie Ellis-Bextor was like in the news the other day, being like, Barry killed it. Like she loves.
She's great, man. I met her. She's fantastic, and that song is now always gonna play differently to me.
Yeah, you and everyone else.
Keep my clothes on. You know.
I guess the other thing I wanted to ask you about was, I mean, you mentioned it with the Jacob Elordi stuff, and the movie to me, like a bit like a movie like Talented Mr. Ripley, like scans a bit. It's like a queer film in lots of ways. Like desire and obsession are like throughout it. Did you have conversations with Emerald about like sexuality and like where Oliver's sexuality in specifics?
Not really. You know, I don't think Oliver sees a gender. It's an object, you know, and he attaches to that, which is weird and sick. But I don't think he. I don't think he kind of I don't think he knows himself.
It's like a means to an end, right? Like,
yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the movie's coming out on Prime now, and people are going to be watching it, myself included, for like a second or third time.
Yeah.
Is there something you're like, you think people are going to pick up on more? Like, is there a moment you're like,
they can press pause and look at it?
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to see a lot more of that. Probably.
Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh shit. But that's one thing that kind of freaks me out, is that people can, look at it.
And then finally, there's so many, like, obviously shooting in Oxford, and the house itself, like, is absolutely mental. Was there like a moment on set where you were like, oh my god, this is absolutely like crazy?
I mean, the whole thing, that manor in itself, it was like such a good summer. Like, you know, it was hot. You know, everyone was amazing, and it was just, you know, the bonus was we were shooting a movie.
Yeah. And how much of Michael, obviously, like you said, so much of it's on the page, and then the script is so kind of rich. How much of your performance as Michael was kind of drawn from, without being specific, kind of people maybe you've met in your? Because I felt like that character was someone that was immediately knowable. People that I feel like it was someone we'd all met.
I mean, I never went to drama school, you know, so every job I do is an opportunity for me to try something different, you know, and hone my craft. And you know, with Michael Gavey, you don't see it in the scenes, but by my legs there was a used Tesco carrier bag full of algebra and crunchy bars, you know, and even off of set I'd take it with me, you know. I'd like to live in his shoes off of set, in his marbled slippers, so to speak, you know. And you know, I think you know, just doing that, it's you know, I wanted to be true to the character, and I wanted you to, you know, I wanted you to imagine that you could see this character outside of the scenes he's in, and maybe even be fascinated to what they might be. And you know, what better way to do that than to live in his marbled walking boots?
Yeah, and it comes across like, I think it's so interesting because by the kind of grand tapestry of the end of the film, Michael seems like kind of just one kind of wedge of it, but actually there's so much in there about kind of, you know, the way that his class is signalled to us in the same way that Oliver's is. It's a really rich kind of, it's a rich characterisation both in the script and in your performance that I really enjoyed. And it's something that I found going back and watching for the second time that really stood out to me. And I was wondering whether there's anything kind of, both within your own performance or in the film generally, that you think audiences should look out for in a second watch, and now they can kind of see it at home.
You know, I mean, Emerald is a genius, you know. Everything in frame is, you know, it's intentional, you know, and so all of those moments, like I think it's a film that you have to rewatch to really get the full experience of Saltburn, and I had a blast making it.
Farley is like one of, I think in the extended kind of family, is both one of the most sympathetic characters, but also a dick kind of throughout the whole film. How was it kind of navigating that, like playing up the kind of both halves of him throughout?
Yeah, well, you know, I think when you're playing someone, it's definitely important just to be like, oh, you know, I'm not just playing like a dick, and so everything you find motivation between, like from every kind of scorn and side eye and bad look, there's a reason why they're all coming. I actually think, you know, so much of it is just defense mechanism, and I think Farley is that unbelievable. There's such a constant intellectual, like, inner monologue happening with him. Like all of those, he's just hard at hiding stuff on his face. But there is definitely a lot of judgment, but a lot of that judgment comes from I don't know, fear of being found out. He's always on the outside looking in, and that's really the thing with Oliver. He, you know, even the very first kind of moment you see Oliver and Farley, he says, "Oh, cool jacket," and kind of takes a mick out of him, and then you see him in the next scene, he doesn't even remember who Oliver is. Like, that's not about making fun of him, it's about making the other people laugh. It's self-serving. It's not about because he's trying to be intentionally mean. He's like, well, if I say something, this is going to make people laugh, and that's going to bode well for me. And he immediately says, "Oh, hi, so nice to meet you," and then quickly realizes that this guy's a bit of a dud, and maybe I can't get much from him, and then turns his attention to the teacher more so. And so, you know, everything's about like, how does this benefit me, and less about how can I just be a dick. But it was so fun to play. It was so fun to play. He's, you know, such a fun, I don't know, just the most fun time. It was a real kind of, it was a step away from myself. I'd never even smoked a cigarette before.
You had cigarette lessons, didn't you?
I also cigarette lessons. I was like, the worst thing in the world is when you watch someone that can't smoke a cigarette and you're like, no, they've never smoked before. So I had cigarette lessons. I was just constantly smoking 24/7.
Amazing.